mistake you made now was solely caused by a previous mistake. So if such a thing happens, you can talk to me about it. But usually that's not going to be the issue. What I need you to do is, and you have until next Monday, end of class. But after that, I couldn't care less whether the TA is 0 or 100. I'll never change this. I want you to look at my answers, go through it carefully. Because as I say to you, probably going through your exam is the most helpful thing you can do. Some of you couldn't do the first question. You've got to see it, figure it out, truly understand it, move along. All the way along. You have to be able to do it all. A, because you might get extra marks, but more than anything, you need to review it. You're going to be doing it on the final. So it's that simple. You know, you've got to constantly sharpen it. Other than that, I don't have much to say about it. I say that the average was good. There's no reason for me to do better. In fact, most people did really well. There's a couple of totally terrible ones, but that's not really that happen. So, no, it was quite good. Any burning questions? I mean, the person to talk to, if you want to change it, me. Nobody else, not the TH, me. I'm here before the class, here at the breaks. Oh, by the way, I'm also, I haven't been able to use 2101 or 20, I think that's what it is, the lecture hall. I'm in on Tuesdays and Thursdays between 5 and 6. I'm in Sydney Smith 2116. 2116. I'll put it on the website, but that's a smaller room, just a seminar room. If you've got issues, come and see me. Right, everybody? Any burning issues about this exam? Great. Yes. And oh, one other thing. I do not wish to talk about any particular mark today, unless, for example, you have something in the back of the page and the TA missed it, that I would look at. But other than that, I need you to, some people say, well, why did I get this? Well, why don't you look at the answer, figure out why you did it, and if it was, our TAs was wrong, then speak to the jury. But go ahead, yes, you can say.
It's a specific question.
What?
It's a specific question.
And how specific is it?
Like how you mark a certain type of question.
Fair enough, but of course, the answer is on the website, which is good, right? So that'll spur you to go there and check it out. Now, if you see that I used to just load it in, my answers are just loaded right in, but here I eliminate a lot of the exam, because I don't want to make it easier for Econ Man to photocopy the download and some of you guys, when in fact it's already available, right? So that's why it looks that way. All right, any burning questions? Good, we move on. This is the most important part of the class. It is not difficult. It is very, it's like, figure out what something would cost. But fundamentally realizing the way that marginal cost behaves, that you separate costs into basically fixed costs and variable costs, that the fixed cost is the opportunity cost of the capital. Now I'm going to play with the diagram just so you get more facility with it. And then we are going to start talking about profit maximization. And we're going to do this theoretically with the diagram. But then, and this happened to me a couple of years ago, like I didn't use tables for a number of years, maybe like 15, 20 years. I said, the tables are ridiculous. When I was first teaching, they used tables. But they're so simple. So after many years of using diagrams and equations and the like, just for fun, I threw in some tables. Class completely bombed it. Whenever anything happens, you use first principles. Doesn't matter what it is. When I ask you something, you use first principles. Right? Okay, good. So let's go. I'm going to show you something, and you're going to tell me an answer. Okay, so here we are. This is the cost. I'll just change this for a minute. Cost per unit, okay? So we draw the marginal cost function. Now you could all tell me why the marginal cost function falls and rises. Could you all tell me? Why does it fall and rise? Ooh, people. Why does marginal cost fall and rise? Yes.
Because once you start producing more, there's like economies of scale, right? And then once
You have an idea that economies of scale are always referring to capital changes. So you can't say economies of scale. What's the term you want to use? When you, as you produce...
Overhead.
Huh?
Decrease in overhead. No.
No. So we're talking about marginal cost here, which has nothing to do with capital or whatever. Go ahead, Laura. Yeah, the law of eventually diminishing returns, right? Which is because capital is fixed. Capital is fixed, eventually the marginal product rises. So there's marginal cost right here, right? And then here is why does average variable cost. Remember, this is right now I'm just talking about the labor costs and the fuel cost. Why does it fall? Well, because you know the relationship between the average and the margin. Average variable cost, all right? And then average cost includes average fixed cost. So now remember, there's a total fixed cost. It's the average fixed cost for each unit. And of course, so add that in to get up here like average cost, and it would look something like this. Gets closer and closer to average variable cost, like that, right? There's average cost. Okay, question for you, everybody. I want to know what is the relationship between this area, right there, and this area here. Don't go by what they look like on the diagram, figure it out analytically. Which area is analytically bigger? Which area is analytically bigger? In terms of course, the smaller green one looks bigger, but analytically, which area is bigger? In particular, what is this area right here? What is this green area right here? We'll figure it out. It's an area. So what is this? It is, bring it down here like this. This is, call this Q0, right? So it's Q0 times something, where are we at? What is it Q0 times? It's this dimension, and what's the vertical dimension? Yeah.
Average fixed cost.
Yeah, average fixed cost. Notice everybody. This is average cost at output 0. This is average variable cost at output 0, right there. Here, actually, I'll just put this section over here. It doesn't get in the way like that. Right? We're reading that off. At this output, that is average cost. At this output, that is average variable cost. Those lines tell us what the average is at that output. And by the way, this is marginal cost at that output. So this vertical dimension here is average fixed cost. What then is the area? Yeah.
That's the total fixed cost?
Yeah, total fixed cost. Let's look at it. This is everybody. So this area, I'll just do it like this. This area is average fixed cost at output 0 times Q0. But average fixed cost is equal to fixed cost divided by output, in particular output Q0 times Q0, which means this is fixed cost. Okay, what about this area here? What is this area here? Yes.
Fixed cost?
Fixed cost again. Notice thank you. That this is also fixed cost because this is Q1, say. This is that at that. This is average cost at Q1. Average variable cost at Q1. So basically, we have here, this is the the average cost of all the labor. This is the average cost of the labor and the fixed costs. So the difference is FC1, and of course the area is FC1 times Q1 is FC divided by Q1 times Q1 is equal to FC. The two areas are the same analytically. Ooh, you know what's good about that? What is fixed cost, by the way? Why would we care about fixed cost? What is fixed cost in our case? What is it? Yeah.
What's the capital?
It's not quite the capital, but it's, you're close, you're almost there. It's not the capital, it's the opportunity cost of the capital. In particular, it's the expected profit. On the board, at any time, if we have those, if we have average variable cost and average cost, we can find out what profit we're supposed to be getting, right? Everybody? That's important. So notice, I'm never going to draw average fixed cost again. We don't need it. We can always figure out average fixed cost is the difference between average cost and average variable cost. Okay, now, our next thing is this. I'll just go back to my notes here. Jump out all this stuff. There we go. We did all this. I drew all these things. Now here's shifts in these costs. Don't worry about shifts in the cost just yet. I'll get to it. Here's maximizing profit. Now we're at the real nitty-gritty. Profit is the total revenue of the firm minus total costs. Accountants calculate profit as what we call operating profit. That is, it's total revenue minus operating costs, or that's what they call it. We call it variable costs. Everybody, operating costs are the same as variable costs. If you're producing something, this is the outlay. That's an accounting definition. I say it's equal to producer surplus. We'll talk about that later. And then they get the return to capital. What are you talking about that? Economists calculate economic profit from all costs. So for us, economic profit is total revenue minus variable cost plus fixed cost. We throw that in right at the beginning, which means the normal profit is the opportunity cost of capital. It is zero economic profit. Because when we get the opportunity cost of capital, it turns out then we have the total revenue minus variable cost and fixed costs gives us zero economic profit. Everybody? So if we make the normal profit, we're making the opportunity cost of capital, we're making the fixed cost. So when I say there's zero economic profit, it doesn't mean that the firm isn't making anything. It means the firm is making a return that everybody else is making, 10%, 8%, whatever it is. Or we say ultimately they're breaking even for reasons we see later. We're talking about the long run. When I say the firm has economic losses, it doesn't mean you're literally losing. So for example, you could set up a convenience store and deduct all your labor and costs and everything like that, and rent, and you could end up making, say, 6% on your money that you put up, whatever it is. You might put up $100,000. Your rate of return is 6%. Remember, I'm deducting my labor, my rent, everything else. I'm literally making 6% on my advanced capital. It's not a loss, but if the average rate of profit is 10%, it's an economic loss of 4%. And that's going to be relevant to us. Because if you're making 6% and everybody else is making 10%, you're not going to stay in that business when you can change. But we're the short run, so we can't change the business. So we're about just yet. Okay. Then, short run profit maximization. Now this is kind of with calculus, you can knock this off in 10 seconds. I'm doing this in a way. So what we're going to do is, it turns out actually, the profit function looks like this. That's the total profit function. I'll use pi. Ready? The total profit function and the kind of stuff that we're dealing with will reach a maximum. At some point, profit is maximized. Okay? So let's look at this. I want that point. How am I going to find it? Well, one way to find it is find the slope. Right? But notice, at the max, the slope goes like this, goes like this, goes like this. At the max, the slope equals 0. What is the slope? It's the change in total revenue minus total cost over the change in Q equals 0, right? So what I'm doing is to find the maximum profit, I'm finding where the slope is 0. This is simplifying it somewhat, but that's enough because I know it's going to behave like that. So I'm finding this. So then let's just do this. The operator, so the change in total revenue relative to the change in Q, like that, minus the change, because the change is the change in total revenue minus the change in total cost, like this. And then this, the definition of this is marginal revenue. The definition of this is marginal cost. Oh, there it is, people. Where's my hand when I need it? Let's see, what's the biggest thing we can get? Is that big enough for you? All right, everybody? Ta-da! Everything we do. Everything we do. Now, it turns out marginal cost doesn't have to be constant. It can change. We've seen that it changes, right? If it changes, we use marginal cost. If it doesn't change, we just use a constant. So for example, the wage rate could go up because people are hiring more workers. So usually we assume the wage rate is constant. So that's simplified. Marginal revenue is the change in total revenue, the revenue from an additional unit. That can go up or down or whatever. But in fact, oftentimes we assume that it is constant. And I want you to tell me all together, what is the revenue of an additional unit for a competitive firm? Yes. Well, wait a minute, you would never sell anything extra. Supposing you're producing Coke, and it's in a competitive market, and you sell an extra unit of Coke, what is the revenue? Not the profit, the revenue. Okay, everybody, back up. What is competition? This is a competitive circumstance. In competition, what's competition? Sorry?
When no one party can control the price.
Can control the price?
Can't.
Okay, so we say price taking. Then what is marginal revenue? The price is always the same. If you sell one more unit, it's the price. So we're going to find, this is the formula for monopoly, because the monopoly can manipulate the marginal revenue. The marginal cost will also change. This is actually the formula for every single firm there ever was. Any profit maximizing firm maximizes the profit in that like right there. It's the same formula for the competitive firm, but we'll see for the competitive firm, it's simpler because marginal revenue is price, so it becomes pricing with marginal cost. It's the formula for monopoly, it's the formula for oligopolies after there's a few firms, It's always the same formula for every single firm. So, let me just show you why so. All this, I can give you examples. Different little things. I've shown you that in a kind of semi-derivation, the profit is maximized and marginal revenue equals marginal cost. This is a nonlinear total revenue function. This is a nonlinear total cost function. They're furthest apart when they're parallel, and parallel is the change in revenue for change in Q, that the slope and the slopes are parallel, right? But the best way to see this is, it shows you there's total profit from here. And now we have this. Let's just look at this for a moment. Supposing you had this information. This is the revenue of an additional unit. It's not constant. For the moment, don't worry about that. Here's marginal cost that you're familiar with. What our formula says, and we've seen this before, and it's very, very, very simple and important. It says that you get the maximum profit if you produce that unit where marginal cost equals marginal revenue. Let's look at it. Again, it's the same idea. I'm going to talk to him. He has a bunch of dollars, call that the marginal revenue, right? Actually, I have dollars. He's going to give me something. He's going to produce and sell it to me, and I'm going to give him $1 for every single one. So notice, right here, pretend this is $1. It's actually falling, but pretend it's $1 for a moment. Right here, I'm going to buy a unit for him, and guess what? The cost of that extra unit, if he produced that extra unit, cost him 20 cents, I'm giving him $1. Of course he's gonna produce it. All the way up to here, it cost him 60 cents. I give him $1. Right here, it cost him 99 cents, and I give him $1. Notice, I'm getting 1 cent essentially free as part of my profit. It's not huge, but it adds to my total profit. I want to maximize my profit. But notice, when I say to him, all right, I'm going to give you $1 for this unit, no way. This unit costs him $1.10. He's not going to produce it. But here's the interesting thing. This formula, MR equals MC, basically comes out of calculus. But it's dead simple. Everybody, whether they know it or not, it's the same formula you. When I hire you, if you have any sense in your head, and I'm paying you $15 an hour, you're happy to work for me so long as you put an extra hour is worth less than $15. And then literally, if you have another job that's paying $16 an hour, and I say, can you work another hour for me? You don't say yes, you say no. I'm paying you 15, you're making 16, right? It's dead simple. You don't really have to know the calculus or any of that junk. You just know as you're producing more units, so long as the cost of an extra unit, remember the fixed cost is done. It's done. It's there, and that's the plan. As I produce more, I produce up to the point where if I produce any more, the cost of that unit is greater than the revenue, I don't produce that stuff. It's that simple, right? Always, again and again and again and again. Okay, so this is our rule. Marginal revenue equals marginal cost. All right, everybody? So if I ask you what's the most important idea in economics in our term, what would you answer? How many of you got this right, by the way? None of you? Oh, was it in a different exam? Oh. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Oh yeah, on the other exam I said, I don't know what I said. This question. Would you have known the answer? This one right here. What is the essential idea of microeconomics? What do you think, guys? What would you have put down? Would you have got it? I sure hope so. So when I say to you, this is important, as I said to that class, I told you before, they all stared at me blankly, so I'll give you again, this. And they all started looking over at the door over there. And I said, oh, it's hopeless. It's not going to happen, right? But that's it. And believe it or not, I can show you exams and go, all right, this question is that question. That's the same thing all over again. Okay, so here we go. Now, do people have any doubt about that rule? That profit maximization occurs at that rule? Do you have any doubt about it? Do you think you can apply that rule? I think if I made it simple, because I'm going to do all this stuff, then I'm going to come right at you with some numbers and say, tell me when profit is maximized. Make sure you know the answer. It's flat out. I don't want you to go, it's just price equals marginal cost. Where does price equal marginal cost? Right there. Okay, good. So this is our basic rule. But for competition, for the competitive firm, P equals MC is our rule. Right, everybody? For the simple reason that, this is the equilibrium condition for the competitive firm. Every competitive firm produces that output where price equals marginal cost. Because marginal revenue is fixed, because the price table, marginal revenue is equivalent to price. So given the price, they produce up to that output, and the last unit they produce is exactly equivalent to marginal cost. All right? Good. That's good. And here I just talk a little bit about some basics. We'll leave that for the moment. Okay, so here's what we do. I'm going to give you information, I'm going to give you price. We'll have the marginal cost, the average cost, and the average variable cost. Eventually I'm going to give you the average variable cost. We're going to have that. Then I'm going to give you the price, and you're going to tell me the output, because that's that output we're pricing with marginal cost. And then once you've got that, you're going to figure out what the average cost is. And the difference between average cost and price is going to be the profit per unit, and the total difference between total average, total cost, and total revenue is total profit. Okay, so here we go. Watch. All right, let's get rid of that. Okay, let's see. Okay. So, just let me do this. Now, it turns out, in my notes I don't do this, but I'm going to show you this here, because ultimately we're going to do this. Down here, on the left, we call this, by the way, this is what we call the firm diagram. And the firm diagram always has, and be ready to draw, people. I'm telling you, if you draw, you learn. If you don't, you don't. It's that simple. Okay. And we need you to do well. So first of all, you draw, say, marginal cost like this. Oh, by the way, no, hang on a second. Let's do this. I'm going to give you this. Don't worry about what you got. This is average cost. This is the average cost of this firm. Just for now. Good. Do you know where the marginal cost goes? Can you draw the marginal cost? Where does the marginal cost go? Reverse your thinking. Where does it go? Erica. Yeah. Everybody, if I gave you that, by the way, it never would, but it used to be something that was given on exams. And actually, it will end up a little bit later. It will be something. You would draw marginal cost, something like this. It's got a fall, rise, go through the middle. Marginal cost. Okay? And let's just draw average variable cost, because we're going to need that. It'll be somewhere over here, say. Falling, getting closer. Average variable cost. And over here, we're going to have, this is the price, and this is the quantity. I'm going to just say for the moment that this is the supply function, like this. It turns out we'll find out how to get the supply function soon. But this is supply over here. All right? That's going to be our basic diagram. We're going to do a bunch of them. Okay? So, let's work on this side. Now, I'm going to say to you, I want, suppose, to begin with, P0, P0, well, let's say, okay, I'll just say it like this. P0 is greater than minimum average cost. Everybody? So any price that is greater than minimum average cost, let's analyze that. So here we have, to get a price greater than average cost, I got to stick in a demand function here, like this. I'm going to have a demand function that looks like, say, this. Really? Like that. Okay? So now, it turns out, I have, over here, in this market